Good afternoon to those who are present and physically and those who are present online. I want to begin by acknowledging how horrible this is. We should not be mourning Valerie's death. We should be celebrating with her. We're having a dinner party. We're relaxing into a meaningful conversation. But here we are. If love and medicine and prayer could have kept Valerie alive, we would not be here today. If her sheer force of will and positive outlook could have kept her alive, we would not be here today. She was loved abundantly. She had excellent medical care. She had people who held her in prayer. She was strong and wanted to stay with the people she loved. Whatever could be done to heal her was done. And sometimes our best efforts are not enough. Those who were close to Valerie would often turn to her to help hold their pain. Now she is not here to turn to. So those who love her need to turn to one another in her absence. There's a poem by W.H. Auden, slightly adaptive, that is perhaps reflective of what people who love Valerie are feeling today, especially on this day when it seems like everything in our neighborhood is frozen into place. Stop all the clocks. Cut off the telephone. Prevent the dog from barking with a juicy bone. Silence the pianos with muffled drum. Bring out the coffin. Let the mourners come. Let aeroplanes circle moaning overhead, scribbling on the sky the message, she is dead. Put crepe bows around the white necks of the public doves. Let the traffic policemen wear black cotton gloves. She was my north, my south, my east and west, my working week and my Shabbos rest, my noon, my midnight, my talk, my song. I thought that love would last forever. I was wrong. The stars are not wanted now. Put out every one. Pack up the moon and dismantle the sun. Pour away the ocean and sweep up the wood. For nothing now can ever come to good. Today, we remember Valerie and we join our hearts together to give comfort and strength to her family. Mourning is a time filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. We begin our service with a recitation of psalms and prayers, linking Valerie's life with the millennia-old tradition of the people of Israel and the eternity of God. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me. Your laugh once lifted me. Your word was gift to me. Remember, this brings a painful joy. It is a human thing, love. A holy thing to love, what death has touched. From Ecclesiastes, V'chol zman v'eit, v'chol chefetz tachat hashemayim. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for being born and a time for dying, a time for planting and a time for uprooting the planted, a time for destroying and a time for healing, a time for tearing down and a time for building up, A time for weeping and a time for laughing. A time for wailing and a time for dancing. A time for throwing stones and a time for gathering stones. A time for embracing and a time for refraining from embraces. A time for seeking and a time for losing. A time for keeping and a time for discarding. A time for tearing and a time for sewing. A time for silence and a time for speaking. A time for loving and a time for hating. A time for war and a time for peace. From Psalm 23. Arnai lo achsai. Bino deshe avitzeni omein nufot yanachaleni. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. I'd like to invite Rodrigo to come forward and share memories and thoughts at this time.
Thank you all for coming and everybody watching. I want to read two things. One is from Banana Reingold, Valerie's stepmom. She says, when I joined the Tobin family over 15 years ago, after I married her father, Shelley, I experienced the good fortune of having an enduring and remarkably rewarding relationship with Valerie. For me, she was one of those rare persons who had the capacity of meaningful connection in all human levels. Using her personal experiences, exquisite intelligence, and executive capacity for life management skills, she was engaged meaningfully in her personal, professional, and advocacy areas of her life. Shelley and I are forever thankful that she, Rodrigo, and Kiki chose to move to Chicago almost 4 years ago, where she entered her PhD program at the Rush Medical Nursing School. While there, she was hired into the psychiatric clinical and research program, where she distinguished herself in many areas of her expertise. For us, it meant the chance to have ongoing, meaningful, face-to-face contact with her and her family, leaving us the treasure of non-erasable, wonderful memories. Thank you, Badana. I'd like to read next something based on what I posted on the Facebook account. I wrote it when I was sitting next to her body when she passed. And I'm still in awe, despite my shock and pain. It was so easy to encapsulate the incredible person that she was. I realize now that it was because it was the simple and pure truth of who she was, so it came out very easily. She was the most amazing, beautiful, intelligent, caring person I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. And I'm so honored that she was my wife. She made my life complete. Beautiful was one of my many nicknames for her. I just call her Beautiful. I have for her, and she truly embodied that in spirit and everything else. I adored her endlessly and always thought she had the most beautiful name, Valerie. She cared so much about people and justice and fairness. She was an incredible mother and fantastic wife. She made her life's work to help children and later, more specifically, transgender youth. She loved reading, poetry, cats, dinner parties, and socializing. She absolutely loved people and was one of the most positive persons I have ever known. She cared so much for her daughter, did so much for her, and would have done anything for her. She made the most she could have in the 12 years she was as a mom, from the moment we adopted our daughter at age 5. She was a great provider, very responsible, and took great and fantastic care of her family. She was also a wonderful daughter, attentive to her father and stepmother, and willing to help in any way. I watched her grow as a person from age 21 to 48. She changed careers from wanting to help women as a midwife to helping children deal with their emotional world. She was proudly bisexual and nerdy and loved reading, teaching, learning, school, and research. She loved the excitement of San Francisco, where we lived for 10 years, good food, travel, Mexico, and loved hearing about different worldviews. She loved Portland even more, and the community she had there. She was a devoted Jew, celebrating the Shabbos with our family and the high holidays for many of the 27 years we were together. The world was a better place with her in it. She left it better for her being in it, and we were all at a loss for her passing. Her life was too short, and she was truly the light of my life. And that light shone on everyone she met. I will miss her greatly, as I know many, many other people will. Thank you.
Valerie, that was beautiful. Thank you. We are here mourning and remembering a remarkable person. The grief or emptiness that you are feeling is a function of the depth of the love you had for Valerie and the impact she had in your life. Valerie was an amazing person. She was unfailingly kind, but was a fierce advocate for people who needed extra strength, whether they were family members or friends or patients or teens from the LGBTQ community who she took under her protective wing. While most of her professional life was focused on helping people one-to-one, she planned through her research to be able to help transgender and gender non-binary adolescents in a more systemic way. Valerie believed and deeply held that the world could be changed for the better, and she was eager to do her part to make that change happen. Valerie died the week that the Jewish community reads the Torah portion, Mishpatim, which is essentially just a list of rules and laws. Some of them are about taking care of those in need, the most vulnerable members of our community. Rules that most would agree today are wonderful guidance in a difficult world. Some are rules about holidays and observances and are particular to the Jewish community. And some are frankly deeply troubling. Rules about slavery, about assault, about women. And they all exist side by side, the good and the bad, in one long list. These rules present the world that Valerie was so deeply engaged in. A world where there is love and beauty, and a world where there is brokenness and despair. And she saw her role very clearly as a person whose purpose was to heal and mend and fix and laugh and love. Valerie seemed to move through the world in a way that was deeply engaged, but not overly serious. There was something about her character that made her easy to talk to. I don't know if those skills were inborn or developed with conscious effort, but she listened intently, was genuinely curious, and emanated kindness. She used those talents to build meaningful relationships in her private life and as a skilled midwife, and later as a therapist in her professional world. Valerie chose careers that were more than jobs, but lifestyles. She was dedicated to improving the world. She was passionate about youth and helping them to live whole and fulfilled lives. She had strong social values and did not believe that the world would fix itself, but that each individual had to do their part to make our world better. She will be buried today near the Haymarket Martyrs Monument, a memorial to the Union laborers who were murdered in Chicago in 1886 for standing up for workers' rights. It is a tribute to the life she led helping people. In Portland, as part of a Shabbat group, she and Rodrigo were connectors, bringing people together just as they did in other places they lived. Valerie was sad that she never settled as well in the Oak Park community as she would have liked, since she had a relapse of cancer soon after they arrived and needed to watch her health. Rodrigo, you shared that when the two of you met, the relationship was qualitatively different than what either of you had known before. Valerie, you said, was smart. She was beautiful. You had shared values, a shared queer identity. You both loved to read. You loved to travel. You made her laugh. And she did have a great laugh. You were both very young. But something clicked, and you quickly found your lives bound together. You were true partners. Not identical, but each of you lifting and encouraging the other to be their best self. You were a couple, better together. And when Valerie and Rodrigo decided to grow their circle of love and adopt Kiki, they found that love grows and that it is multiplicative, not additive. Kiki, your mom loved you with all her being. She loved being with you, listening to your stories, learning from you. But most of all, she loved you for who you are, wholly and without reservation. That is what a mom strives to do. And I suspect she was very good at it. Valerie's death, with so much still to do, is tragic. But her life was beautiful. She knew how to love, how to listen, how to connect. She knew how to laugh. May her memory bring blessing to all who knew her. And through us, may it bring blessing to all the world. May this be God's will. Amen. I'm going to take a moment now for silent prayer and memory. And I see that Mark has managed to come in through the terrible storm to be able to be with us. Mark, do you have a few remarks prepared to say today?
Yeah, I did.
If you'd like to come forward, you can do it at this time.
Made it through the storm. Had a bit of a car wouldn't go for a while. Got here. So, yeah, the first thing I'm going to share is from my dad, and he asked me to share something on his behalf. Because with the cold and the storm, he didn't think it was wise for him to come out. And my dad and my sister shared a very deep bond. She had moved back to Chicago partially to help take care of him, and they always shared a very intellectual and independent thinker. We were both very interested in the mind and psychology and helping people. And my dad asked me to share some of the words that our cousin Lad sent to him because he thought those really spoke to him, and he wasn't really, he felt like those would really say what he wanted. So she was one of the most vital, insightful, and loving people I've ever known. Even during the time that she was sick, she remained so wonderfully open and present to everyone and everything. Toby and I talked with Valerie on the phone just a few weeks ago and came away amazed that she could talk with such honesty and courage about her illness, and then move right on to talking about the pleasure and meaning she found in the book she was reading, the movies she was watching, and most of all in the loving relationships she had with her family, friends, colleagues, and clients. And then I wanted to share something on my behalf. Valerie was the best big sister I could have ever hoped for. We were 2 years apart, but shared a birthday. She helped look after me when I was a little kid. When I was really young, I couldn't really speak very loudly or clearly, and she helped translate for me to adults. And as we both grew up, we remained close, and I got to visit her a lot in San Francisco, and then we both lived in Portland together for years. So I'm very grateful that I had those years to share with her, to see her and Rodrigo and Kiki often. But I had been looking forward to coming more often to Chicago and sharing with her here, and was hoping this trip to make it and be able to at least help with her caretaking, but things deteriorated so quickly that wasn't possible. So the trip has now become more seeing other family, and I've been saying some Jewish prayers for Valerie's spirit, and also some Tibetan Buddhist prayers as well. I don't know what I believe exactly happens after death, but I've been saying those prayers in case it's helpful.
Ask those who are able to please stand for El Malay Rachamim as we ask that Valerie's soul be with God, resting beneath the shelter of God's wings. El Malay Rachamim Shalchein Bamramim Ham Semenucha Nechona Tachat Kanpei Ashchina Im Kedoshim Tahorim Kazohar Rakia Mazhirim Et Nishmat Ahava Bat Abraham Vasara Shehalacha L'Ulama Ba'al Harachamim Yasireha B'Seter K'Nofar L'Ulamim V'Yitor B'Tor HaChaim Et Nishmata Adonai Hu Nachalata V'Tanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkava V'Nomar Amen. God of abundant mercy, God Most High, may Valerie's soul, which has gone into eternity, find the perfect peace in your embrace with the holy and the pure, whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold her close to you forever, so that her soul may be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May she find a home with you, and may she rest in peace, as together we say, Amen. While traditionally we would not say Kaddish until we arrived at the cemetery, for the sake of those who are joining us online today, so they can be with us when we say Kaddish, we'll say it together now. If you have a booklet that you received when you came in, it's printed on the back of that booklet. Yitgadal Yitgadash Shemei Rabbah Be'almad Yivra Ferute Yamlich Malchute B'chayechon Liomechon Uchaye Dechol Beit Yisrael Ba'agalav Yizman Kariv Imru Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam Umei Omaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitbahar V'yithamam V'yitnaseh Yiradar Vitale Vitalal Shemei B'Kudisha B'rechu La'ela Min Kol Birchata V'Shirata Tush B'chata V'nechemata Da'amiran Be'alma V'imru Amen Yehei Shlama Rava Min Shemayim V'chaim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen Osei Shalom B'mramav V'yasei Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'imru Amen. The God who creates order in the heavens, help us bring peace and comfort to all the earth. As together we say, Amen. This concludes our service in the sanctuary. We're going to be taking the casket now to the person and to the cemetery, and we'll resume services there.
Got it going.
Heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. God reckons the number of stars, giving each one its name. Great and full of power is God, whose wisdom is beyond reckoning. Amen. Fully compassionate God on high, Valerie, Tobin, Ahavabat, Abraham, the Sarah, who has entered eternity, great clear and certain rest with you in the lofty heights of the sacred and pure, whose brightness shines like the very glow of heaven. Source of mercy, forever enfold her in the embrace of your wings. Secure her soul in eternity. Adonai, she is yours. May she rest in peace. May the Holy One of blessing, from whom all things come, and to whom all things return, give us light and peace on this day of our grief and mourning. And may our service of memory for Valerie bring comfort and strength. Bolo mer trav emama ekra. Borkasar katsir v'chol kasto katsitsa sadeh. Yavesh katsir navel tzitz ki ruach Adonai nashvabo. Achein katsir ha'am yavesh katsir navel tzitz. K'dvar Eloheinu yakum la'olam. The voice says, cry out. And I say, what shall I cry? All flesh is grass. All its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers and the flower fades when the wind of Adonai blows upon it. Surely the people are grass. The grass withers and the flower fades. The word of our God shall endure forever. Atzur tamim ho'olo v'chol derachav mishpat. Mi yomar lo